could see the toast. I couldn't even get it through the door. This
I
movie,
wanted to open up with that one.
oh my lord. This movie epitomizes everything I love about John Candy, everything I love about Macaulay Culkin, everything I love about John Hughes movies in general. But before we get into it, welcome back to the Classics. Really, super throwback to the classics. The Cinematic Movie Podcast takes you back to the iconic films of 20 plus years ago. I am your guy, Danger Neff. To end the month of May, I'm bringing in an old friend, and we're going to talk about one of the greatest movies of all time. You might have seen her in Cinema Rehab. Let's give it up, my friend Selina. How are you? How you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. I see you got a backwards cap, thick rims, and hair that don't care. That is
Mm,
1990s in everything that I can possibly feel and dream of.
I'm with you. What can I say?
And we're taking this back, all the way back. There is no movie news. Um, so there is no movie news this week. How's Cinema Rehab going?
It's going well. We still have more content coming. We did take a little bit of a hiatus now that the Falcon and Winter Soldier is over, but we will be back with more classic versus remakes and a whole bunch of other stuff is in the works.
That's right. I can't wait to hear about your opinion about Selena Part Two. I've not heard of anybody say anything whatsoever. So I really
I just emotionally recovered Dave, and you had to go and hit me with that.
For those of you who don't know, one of the earlier episodes that Selena and I have actually done, her favorite artist is Selena. And they dropped the Netflix series, and she had a whole thing, a whole little small thing on the first part of the series and kind of like where it went. And the second part just dropped, but I really want to hear her take on it. I'm gonna let her say it in her own words on Cinema Rehab. So I want to see what she says and kind of throws out there. And you can go ahead and check that out when we go ahead and drop that. But let's get into today's movie. We're taking this
Yes.
all the way back to 1989, specifically August 16th of 1989, with the incredibly, definitely family friendly, but it definitely has its adult moments in it. Uncle Buck, starring John Candy, Amy Madigan, and of course Macaulay Culkin and Gabby Hoffman. Original release date August 16th of 1989. Shares opening weekend with Casualties of War, Cheetah, Let It Ride, Rude Awakening, and Eddie and the Cruisers 2. Eddie Lives. Um, I've never seen any of those films. I have no idea. Like,
This
like
movie came out a couple weeks before I was born.
this came out, so I was two. Yeah, I just turned two the month before when this movie came out, and I really remember this movie because this is one of my father's favorite movies. It's one of my mother's favorite movies. Everything about this movie is kind of everything you want in an uncle. Like he's very charming, he's very lovable, probably a little bit crazy, but everything about this movie kind of epitomizes like when your family is in a bind, what crazy shenanigans can kind of happen when you bring in the lovable uncle. And I have a lovable uncle, my uncle Dave, who I'm actually named after, um, and he's named after his uncle Dave. And my great uncle Dave is actually still alive. And I was fortunate enough to get on Zoom with him to wish him a happy 86th birthday. Um,
Nice.
yeah. And I actually got to meet him for my first time the 2 years ago. Because we were actually burying my grandfather who had passed years before that, but we were moving his body from the couch. I'm just kidding. We were moving his body from Atlanta to the Iowa National Cemetery where they bury the veterans. And my grandfather was a veteran of the Korean War. Um, and it was really, really interesting and fun getting to learn all about him because his house is like 3 blocks away from the Mississippi River. Like literally, you have the Mississippi River, and you cross one major road, and you're on the Mississippi. Like you can dip your hand, you could start fishing right there, um, and you have bald eagles that are hanging out in the trees all over there, and you know it's a good fishing spot because you'll see the bald eagle swoop down and just kind of come in, just grab whatever. Um, he lives in the hometown of Buffalo Bill, and you can actually see the Buffalo Bill house. So I remember one particular story with my great uncle where he was showing me all around Iowa, and he kind of he kind of made a joke about one of the girls that he used to kind of have a thing for over there, and I had to ask. I was like, so what happened there? He's all like, well, the best way I could kind of put it is I planted my seed and really hoped for a crop failure. And of course, my uncle Dave, one of the fondest stories I ever have of him is I was in Atlanta. My uncle had to work. He worked for Cisco Corporation, so the food delivery, and he took me literally everywhere around Atlanta and he took us to fantastic restaurants, like some of the best restaurants I've ever ate at. One of his customers was actually the Atlanta Motor Speedway, home of the Coca-Cola 600, and he was able to get us into a car to drive around the track, do 2 laps around the track while the NASCAR walls were still up at the time. And yeah, I was 90 degrees at certain points over there. Like I'm over here literally like this. It was just a fantastic time. But everything about Crazy Uncles kind of relates. It kind of relates so much this movie to me with my own family. And I love this. What brought Uncle Buck to you, Selena?
I was 2 when I first saw this movie and I was hooked. Like the little kids that would rewind the tapes as soon as they finished watching it, just to watch it all over again. Like that was me with this movie. A lot of the jokes and the humor went right over my head, obviously, because I was 2. But it it's one of those that I knew John Candy as Uncle Buck. I didn't know him as John Candy. So
Right.
when I saw Summer Rental or Caddyshack or another one of my favorites, Only the Lonely, Uncle
Only
Buck, Uncle
the
Buck.
Lone. Only the
I
Lone.
love that movie. Funny story about that one. My mom was in the kitchen. This is when we lived in Oklahoma, and I think she was washing the dishes or something, washing the dishes, and it's the part where him and his brother get into a fight, and the brother says like, fuck you. And so I just go in the kitchen all nonchalant, like, Mom, fuck you, Uncle Buck. And my mom's like, excuse me?
Only the Lonely. That is that. You know what's fun? That was directed by the same guy who actually did Home Alone, Christopher Columbus.
Mm-hmm. Well,
El
Home Alone was inspired by Uncle Buck.
Maureen O'Hara is also in the movie as well. So
Mm-hmm.
fascinating, really fascinating that that's one of your favorites. But Uncle Buck is definitely one of those. It's a timeless classic. If you haven't seen it, as we described the movie, please go out of your way and check this out. Let's kick this movie off. First and foremost, Rotten Tomato score for this thing, a 63% by critics and only a 76% by audiences. Is that fair, Selena?
No, this movie's a comedic goldmine. Like there's so many hidden gems in this. Like I said, Home Alone was inspired by this movie.
It really was.
They they were directing the scene where Macaulay Culkin's washing the dishes and he's like, I have to do everything around here. And that scene alone is what inspired Home Alone. So It inspired another classic. Like I can quote this movie beginning to end to begin, from the middle to whatever part, and it never gets old. Like that's totally an unfair score.
Right. So let's kick this thing off. Bob and Cindy Russell and their three children. 15-year-old Tia, who acts way too old for her age. Like, Tia feels like almost an 18, 19-year-old in this. 8-year-old Miles, played by Macaulay Culkin, and 6-year-old Maisie have recently moved from Indianapolis to Chicago suburbs due to Bob's promotion. And Tia is almost is equally that chick and that fool in this movie, because everything Tia does is a nightmare. It's not so much that she already makes bad decisions, but she's confrontational about everything. For example, an early line that she has on this is that evening they're eating at a way too nice of a dinner table for Chinese food, in my opinion. Um, and she decides to say, "Chinese takeout, mother. How this is such a wonderful dinner, mother. However, do you find the time?" And it's all like, "Oh." I just want to slap her most times. But
She's that typical angry teenager who's angry at the world, angry at her parents, hates her siblings, like is just ready to turn 18 and get the hell out and never look back.
yeah, and to be fair, there's something to say a lot about the relationship between Tia and Cindy, played by Elaine Brumka. Cindy Russell, like, I don't know the parenting technique of them, but they are so hands off on their parenting that it's almost that it almost kind of like takes you back a little bit. Like she's just okay taking that kind of language from Tia, and I'm like, yo, you got to speak up. You got to say something. Like how dare you do this? You can go and sleep outside. It's fucking snowing, so you can go sleep outside for all I care. I don't really care. It is Chicago, and late one night they receive a phone call from Cindy's aunt in Chicago, or in Indianapolis, informing them that her father has had a heart attack. And okay, maybe nowadays a heart attack is really seen as, I don't want to say it's not seen as a major event, because it obviously is a major event, but normally you don't travel for several days or a couple of weeks, to go out and see your family, for the heart attack and whatnot. Normally you kind of stay by the phone. But in this case, Indianapolis and Chicago is close enough. I only think it's separated by about a 7 or 8 hour difference, that the drive is pretty reasonable. So they make plans immediately. And at first they wanted to do the Nevilles. And the Nevilles are out of town because they're in Florida, right? And I mean, she is, and I mean, like Cindy is doing everything possible not to call it the absolute last resort possible, which is Bob's brother Buck, who just so happens to live in Chicago.
Mhm.
But being down to their last little bit of news, Tia, who's bitter about being forced to move, accuses Cindy of abandoning her father. Bitch, like, like
Exact same thing given the opportunity. She's ready to get the hell out already.
she is. Here's what makes Tia so great. Um, she is ready. She has the knife already in you, and she knows exactly how to twist it just the right way to try to get a reaction out of you, because she feels like that. Haha, I got you there. I won that time, and it's infuriating to see her, because you almost want to reach through the television, just grab her by her neck, and just start choking her. But it's super effective, and I really, really, really have to applaud Jean Louisa Kelly for pulling that off so well, because she does that very often in some of her roles. When she knows the buttons to push, especially in roles like in Mr. Holland's Opus, it works like a charm, and it's something that's kind of a trademark of her. that you would see through acting throughout the years. Bob, of course, suggests Buck, and after Cindy objects, trying to get the Nevilles, they're left with no other reason. They consider Buck basically a bad influence because he's with a woman who sells tires, and the cigarettes, and and Buck is unemployed, and Buck is exact. If Buck is a millennial, I'm just going to say it right now. Buck is a millennial man. All right,
My
because
man is living the dream.
he is everything that a millennial male would love to do. This is a guy that it's not that he's not committed to his relationship. It's that he's non-committal about everything in his life. He doesn't really want to have a boss, that he has to report to, and he doesn't really want to have that kind of income because he wants to be able to just kick back with the friends and kind of go bowling or shoot pool that night or whatever. He wants to have as much leisure and freedom as possible, and he's the kind of guy that would kind of get away with it for a long time. But as you come later to find out in the film, that dream only lasts for so long. So when Bobby calls Buck, it's amazing because 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 Buck answers the phone mid stupor, like completely out of his mind. And mind you, he just told his girlfriend, if I could figure out an excuse to get out of work in the morning, I would have already thought of, that you would buy. I would have already thought of one. His girlfriend, who I'm just going to be honest, is I don't know. I never found her attractive. She kind of looks like, who she looks. She looks like William Dafoe in drag. That's what she looks like. She looks like if William Dafoe did drag, or if you've ever seen, that's what she looks like. It's a bit terrifying.
Poor
But
thing.
played by Amy Madigan, you would have seen her in Field of Dreams. She also had a small role in Gone Baby Gone, if you ever saw that. She's a good actress. She's won an Emmy before. It's just, you know, there's just a look about her that I don't care about. Anyways, so it sounds bad. So, anyways, Buck answers the phone and he's just all like, he's all like Bob who, like trying to figure out if this is a guy that he like owes money to, and he's all like, Bobby, Bobby, how you doing? Were you drunk calling me this this late at night? Kind of explains the situation, and Buck is all over it. Credit to Buck because he doesn't even question it. He's like, you know what? Yeah, it'd be nice to kind of see my family once again. And he goes and this kind of turns to a little bit of a comedy bit as he goes and tries to find a spare bag, you know, and his entire closet falls on him, including a bowling ball that careens off the top of his head. He gets into he gets into his beautiful 1977 Mercury that really, really, really needs an oil change. Really needs an oil change because that thing is falling apart, and has the worst backfire I've ever heard from any vehicle, and decides to start driving his way to the suburbs of Chicago from his downtown apartment. And it's kind of hilarious, like because he's sitting there in the car, he's all like, Tia's got to be like 9 now. He's all like, and then you got the two little ones. You got
In the other name wrong.
he was all like Larry and and Jennifer. Larry and Jennifer. I'm like, that's not even close.
That's
So of course, if you ever had to show up to a family's, like, this was something that reminded me of like Georgia. If you ever had to show up to somebody's house in the middle of the night on an emergency, you kind of know, and what I mean by emergency, or at least everybody's like expedient. Maybe they have a super early morning flight. You know, everybody's kind of like in their little little thing, and Bob goes, or not Bob, but Buck goes. Actually, as he shows up to the house, as he shows up
It's
to the
not
house,
even the right.
he goes and he starts like ringing the doorbell of this house and starts pounding on the door a little bit. He's like, "Come on, Bobby, this isn't funny." like, I'm like, who rings a doorbell at 2 a.m.? Who rings a doorbell at 2 a.m.? Pounding on the door, until finally Bob's like, Buck, Bob, Buck, Bob. It's just this constant little back and forth. Keep your voice down. I didn't realize I had the wrong house. Just like always screaming
Oh
out.
my God, the birds.
um, and so as he kind of goes in, and he at first he kind of speaks, he kind of speaks he speaks to Cindy, and he's all like, hey, good news, I quit smoking cigarettes.
Oh, good.
Oh,
I'm
good.
on to cigars now.
Isn't that something? I'm on to cigars now. I'm on this like 5-year plan. I eliminated cigarettes, then I go to cigars, then I go to pipes, then I go to chewing tobacco, then I'm on to that nicotine gum. But Buck is in his 40s. So by the time his plan is done, he's going to be in his mid 60s, like probably with lung cancer. Probably with lung cancer at this point. And
Probably.
and he kind of asks for, he doesn't ask for checks, but he kind of is like, I can cash in like a
Yes,
I can cash in
she
like
insists has no money.
he's broke. He has to be broke. He absolutely has to be broke. So um he's left some checks, and he kind of tells Shanice like what's going on like well before then, and she just straight up just like yells at him and hangs up on him. I mean, it makes sense. They've been together for 8 years, and she wants to get married and have kids, and he's just not into that kind of. He's very reluctant to do that. So when he kind of starts settling himself in, he makes breakfast in the morning, and he immediately gets shit from Tia, like almost immediately. Like it's just awful glares, silence, and Tia's over here. She has to drink her coffee. What 15-year-old drinks coffee? You know, um, you drink coffee at 15.
I started drinking coffee when I was a child. I am Mexican. What are you thinking?
Fair enough. Um, Buck goes and he kind of makes this breakfast that actually doesn't look half bad. It looks like an omelet. Maybe not the best looking omelet I've ever seen, but and like a pomegranate and an orange. He's actually actively trying. This is something I actually like about Buck. Buck immediately tries. Like it wasn't like he was just like reluctant to kind of go there. He's just like, oh man, it'd be really great to see them. Like, I'm gonna try to show, hey, it's your Uncle Buck. And that's something I really, really appreciate that John Hughes did here, because I
Well, and what
go
I really, really loved about this scene is that the world's most irresponsible 40-year-old had this test and passed it with flying colors on the first night because no questions asked, drove all that way, clearly still drunk, barely fell asleep,
oh oh
drove all that way to watch his nieces and his nephew. Family emergency, family comes first. And then wakes up early in the morning. And if you're lazy like me, mornings are not our thing.
oh
Like, miss me with that.
Here's what I love about it.
And starts making breakfast for the kids.
And was actually dressed and showered. That's what I found
And
probably most impressive. He wasn't in PJs. He was in like a sweater vest, with like, okay, fine. I think he was wearing sweatpants, but he's in like he's trying to make like a good impression in this case. And
Mhm.
what's awesome about it is that he arrived at the house at 2 a.m. and he says his first line, it's top of the morning, top of the 7 a.m. morning to in Mr. I don't have to go to work today. Brought to you by Kowalski Tires, doing this whole thing. So I'm like, my man got 5 hours of sleep, found a way to shower and actually have a decent pair of clothes on, and made breakfast before any of the kids came down. That's a guy right there. So as he kind of reacquaint himself with them, Tia is super brash and is hostile, but he quickly becomes a fan favorite with Miles and Maisie. And even though he didn't know their names, fair enough. um Miles immediately takes to him and begins asking him a series of questions, you know
The interrogation.
oh my lord. And here's what's great about the scene. John Candy really helped out Macaulay Culkin as an actor in this scene because he actually had, when they would pan over to Macaulay Culkin, he actually had the place cards over like a set of glasses for him so that he could actually read from there. And you could see Culkin actually reading, and as it's kind of going back and forth with this to kind of help him out as an actor, because Macaulay Culkin was literally a very young child in this case. I don't even think he was 8. I really think he was probably closer to 7 or 6 in that. So as he kind of begins this little battle of wills, he takes him to school, and as he takes him to school, of course, the backfire on the Mercury goes off, and it sounds like a gunshot at the school. Nowadays,
Sounding like, yeah.
he's all like, and what's great is that Tia's all like, "Has anybody ever embarrassed you this badly when you went to school?" And this is perfect comedy.
Yeah.
He sat there for a good 20 seconds before he answered, as he looked like he was seriously thinking about the question. And finally
And
said,
then he says no. The kids in the back are like,
um, and you get the introduction to probably the easily that fool in this, played by Jay Underwood, Bug, Tia's boyfriend. And Jay is exactly what you kind of pictured him as. Funny enough, that same actor was originally supposed to play the Human Torch in the 1994 version of the unreleased film of the Fantastic Four. Jay Underwood had issues. That's literally all I can really say about him. Like, he is kind of a rich, snotty kid. That his dad is apparently a lawyer, and that he's going to force himself upon women. Very, very clearly, he tries doing that very early on in this film, and is a repeated behavior of his. This is a guy that would definitely have a Me Too story. And
mhm.
Buck immediately catches on to his game, which is again great. I love that he was so ready to fight him every single way, every single inch. I'm sure some people would say, well, maybe that's a little bit too overprotective, but Buck from his
You're
own
not when you're 15.
yeah, Buck from his
Not
own
when you're 15.
exactly. Buck from his own experiences recognized and saw that and immediately shut that shit down. For example, uh, for example, when he finally when he warns Tia that Buck is only interested in her for sex. Uh, One evening they're out making out in a car. Or I'm sorry, no. After school, they go and they're kind of making out, and
Oh,
immediately
oh,
Buck.
I love this part.
Go ahead. Why don't you say it? I've been talking a lot.
Bug has the stupidest laugh. And then, ever heard of a tune-up? He's like, you ever heard of a ritualistic killing? He goes, no. And he goes, Not my niece's face like that in public again, and you'll be one.
But again, fighting him every step of the way. For example, that evening they decide to go bowling, right? And you get another creep, that's there, and Pal. Oh my god. Pal was also close to being that fool award because Pal is literally Bug in the future. Um,
Yeah,
it-
just got his ass kicked.
yeah, yeah, seriously.
Black is forming. His lip is cut, split right down the middle.
But he still doesn't care because he's got a brand new Bronco out in the back, red. And and as Buck's having fun with the other two, with the other two, Tia, of course, is not taking to any sort of liking whatsoever to Pal in this case. And Pal comes in and he has this toothpick move that he does where he basically rotates the toothpick in his mouth. And at one point, you hear it stab himself at the roof of the mouth. It's like, and it's like, like that kind of hurt. But he, how Buck sees Pal over there and he's all like, You got a game? You got a game here, Pal? And he's all like, Buck. He's all like, You're not going to get any strikes saying here. Now go on, get. And it's just everything about Buck is, God, everything that a guy really, really should be. Like, should be there for the family, should be there to kind of show up and kind of defend and be very active and be in having that presence in the life, where they can create that safe environment. Um, we get afterwards, I believe afterwards is Miles' birthday party, and it's the cutest scene in the movie. It's fucking phenomenal because as the kids are at school, you see what looks like a glob of batter sitting on a ginormous skillet, and you're not sure what to make of it, and you're not really sure what to make of it from Buck. And as he grabs a snow shovel, gets underneath it perfectly, and flips this thing, you realize it's a pancake. And when I say this thing is massive, this thing is easily like 2 feet around. And he makes
It's bigger than that, I feel. It was like almost as big as the entire stove.
it really was. It was enormous. And he makes a stack of them. And not only makes a stack of them, but he then has a whole thing of butter. I'm not talking like a scoop. I'm talking bars of
A
butter
perfect
on top of
square.
it. And he goes and he yells a happy birthday, dressed up. He's kind of dressed up, but he's got streamers everywhere and balloons everywhere. As a kid, I could not tell you how bad I wanted that. I could not tell you how bad I wanted that exact same experience, so much so that my mom attempted the same thing. And she made a pancake. She made a pancake about a foot across. It was a good sized pancake. She only made one, but it was a good sized pancake with the butter on top and the syrup and whatnot. And it just it relived a fantasy. It lived it
I
out.
came up with the actual recipe for those pancakes, the exact same size and everything, years ago online. Thought I saved it, didn't, and I can't find it anywhere anymore.
So, funny enough, Binging with Babish, and shout out to this YouTube channel, Binging with Babish remade these pancakes. You can actually go, and he actually has it on his page that you can go and you can look up Uncle Buck pancakes, and he actually remade it using a machine. He didn't use the trial and error.
A shovel?
And no snow shovel here, but use a machine, and they looked fantastic. Um, and as he gets all these streamers out, and whatnot, he announces, just want to give you guys a heads up that the clown is going to be a little bit late. And
Oh my God, the clown.
the kids are all disappointed. not because the clown is coming, or not because the clown is late, but because the clown is coming. And this clown shows up to the door, played by Dumb and Dumber's Mike Starr, the guy who ate the rat poisoning. That's the same guy. I don't know if you knew that.
I did.
So Mike Starr comes up and he is drunk out of his mind, like barely hangs on. And he goes and as he answers, Candy is super excited to see him. But then he says, "I'm sorry, I'm late. I was at an all-night bachelor party. You want a dildo joke? Whoa!" And you can just tell this is a guy that you don't put in front of kids. And Candy basically punches his ass out, giving him two pretty good knocks and tells him to get in his mouse and get the hell out of here because he drives him. Um, so from here we actually get, and again, a lot of this is kind of small scenes that maybe don't necessarily build up to what the main story is, but it kind of shows a good character of what Buck really is, because he then goes to Miles' school to basically
Baby
have
school.
a parent.
Oh, well, they're in the same school.
Oh no, you're right. It's probably the same, but for Maisie's class, um, to basically have a wonderful conversation with the assistant vice principal. I don't know what that means. I've always had a principal and a vice principal. I've never had the assistant vice principal.
Maybe that's what they call him out there.
Maybe, but played by Suzanne Shepard. Um, she is well, she's a hard ass. And what I mean by a hard ass, like she has this huge wart on her face. And when Buck when Buck introduces himself, um,
Melanoma.
yeah, he goes Buck Melanoma, Cindy Russell's wart. That's exactly like Bob Russell's wart, not his wart. And he kind of backtracks, and he's like, "That's what they used to call me, old melanoma head."
Melanoma head's coming through.
And the assistant principal decides to kind of talk about how Maisie is not serious about her. Maisie, the 6-year-old, is not serious about her career as a student. And it cuts away immediately to Maisie, and it's one of the funniest fucking lines in the movie, where Maisie explains, because Buck can't figure out how to work the washing machine. Um, she says, my uncle microwaved my socks, microwave my socks to help clean them. And the teacher says, "Is that true?" And she's all like, "Yes." And teacher's all like, why would your uncle be microwaving your socks? Because he can't get the goddamn washing machine to work.
And
Blasphemer!
the way she's sitting and just says it all wide-eyed because he can't get the goddamn washing machine to work.
um, and as this assistant vice principal is kind of explaining everything, like it just kind of turns into this thing where Buck's like, if you glare at a kid the wrong way here, like somebody who's just trying to enjoy the day, whatever, I will personally come here and you and I will have problems.
This
Now
is
here's a course.
hands down favorite scene.
It's great.
Favorite scene. And he's telling her off like this poor little boy that's waiting to see her next, and he's like, "I'll cover for you, I'll go in first." He's like, "Thanks." And hearing the whole thing, he's hearing her tear her a new one, and he was like, "I don't think I want to know a 6-year-old who isn't a silly heart or a dreamer or a twiddler. I definitely don't want to know one who takes her educational career as a student seriously, but I know a good kid when I see one, like, or I might not have a college degree. I don't even have a job." She kind of scoffs, like, "Of course." And he's like, but I know a good kid when I see one. You so much as scowl at my niece or any other child at the school, and I hear about it, I'll come and looking for you. Damn, I don't have a quarter. I was gonna have a quarter ready.
Now here, take
Take
a
this quarter,
quarter.
go downtown and have a rat gnaw that thing off your face. And she's all, good day to you.
And
Oh God, I can't even tell you how many times as a kid, a teenager, even an adult, how many times I rewatched that scene specifically.
it really is magical. Um, it goes to another really great scene where Buck saves Tia once again from Bug, you know, with a hatchet. And let me explain. He goes and he goes and he shows up and he's all like I'd like to come around, and I like to carry a hatchet with me. Not to kill, just to maim. A little meat off the kneecap, off the shoulder, a little bit off the He's like, I like to keep mine nice and sharp, nice and sharp too. He goes, do you know what I'm saying? Because he's worried that they've been drinking and that Tia may have been put in danger. He then proceeds to go to the trunk and he pulls out the fucking hatchet. he's like, he's like, you want to come over and see it? No, maybe
Go home.
later. I think you're.
I love the line where he goes like, "Why I keep mine so sharp? I've been known to circumcise a gnat."
Wait a
Gnat,
minute.
bug. Is there a little similarity there? I think so.
So, of course, though, Tia decides to finally enact her revenge on Buck by meddling in her affair, by tricking Shanice into thinking that Buck is cheating on her with their neighbor Marcy. And kind of skipped over this, but during the bowling scene, you get to meet what's his name, Roger Coswell, Roger Coswell, and who's one of Buck's friends. And the way that Buck basically makes his money is through gambling, but he always cheats on his gambling to make sure they always wins. Which, okay, fine, whatever. And he says that he is owed a tip. They have a huge race this weekend, and he goes, "Consider this your year will be taken care of." In the process, it kind of talked a little bit about Shanice, in which Buck is basically trying to tell Raj not to mention anything about her because it's just one of those things. And when when Shanice kind of goes to confront Buck about what she heard, it leads to an argument between them, mainly because you get Marcy's horny ass, willing to basically hump anything at that point, trying so hard to like get with Buck. And Marcy is, of course, played by Laurie Metcalf, probably best known for her role in Roseanne. And to kind of see her be like this floozy type is, well, it's a real treat. Because he's like, oh my God, is there a big sexy man in here? As he's like doing the laundry in the microwave. Oh my God, what are you doing? You're bored out of your mind. You need adult supervision. It's like, oh my God, please stop. You are terrifying. Um,
Oh my God. Billy Loomis's mom, what in the name of Scream are you doing?
right? Exactly. That's how she later became, Billy Loomis's mom. And just kept throwing herself at people.
Waiting for the Federal Express, man.
Fine. I'll just wait for the Federal Express man. Not even FedEx guy, the Federal Express man. So,
My mom made a joke and like he's probably scared by her too. He probably just throws the packages at her door and runs out.
probably. Buck is, of course, dancing with Marcy in the living room, but it's innocent more than anything. It just looks like it is a little bit for fun. Shanice decides to leave him. The following weekend, concerned after Tia sneaks out to a party, Buck has a major decision to basically decide. Either attend the horse race with his niece and nephew, the 6 and 8 year old, as he cheats on horses to make his living, or to basically go out and looking for Tia. And I'm going to be honest, this was a tough decision also for myself. Like sitting there thinking about it, like I have no job. I have very little that I'm able to provide, and I basically get the chance for me to cover the rest of my year, to cover the way that I live. And for my niece to suddenly go out of the way to lie to me again, to basically sneak out and whatever, it's kind of a tough call, especially what do you consider like all the shit that she's practically caused for him, including the stuff that he doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, he decides to make the right move, and he calls and begs Shanice to watch Miles and Maisie, which is again another adorable scene because she goes and she's all like, "I'm supposed to watch you," and as Miles goes and he's all like, "Can I see some ID? Can I see some ID?" And she goes, of course, it's freezing out there, so she goes and kind of like pulls off her gloves and whatnot, and shows the ID, and then Macaulay Culkin's like, "Can you take it out?" She's like, "Take it out!" And Buck goes and figures out where the party is basically being held at. And at the party, thinking that Bug is taking advantage of her in the room. And to be fair, it is positioned like that. Bug is in the room, and he's definitely undressing a girl at this point. And she is clearly saying the words no and stop it. And he continues on his way to kind of do stuff with her. So in the process, Buck goes and forces the door open by drilling out the lock, but walks in, and of course, Bug is with another girl, a very hot other girl, just so you know, but still another girl. Afterwards, he finds Tia wandering the streets, and she tearfully apologizes to him, recognizing that she was in the wrong, and acknowledges that he was right about Buck. And Buck does the right thing. He doesn't lecture her. He doesn't says, aha, or I told you so. He just says, I just want to take you home. I just want,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I feel like that moment has kind of relayed and portrayed so much for myself, when it comes to my own raising of my niece, because sometimes you already know what's kind of being said. You know where their mindset's going to go. Are you going to tell my parents? This may or may not have been something that I would have told the parents, but in all fairness, it's fair to kind of talk about it if she wanted to. And
Mm-hmm.
and afterwards, like Buck says, I had to kind of think about the kind of person I am, and how I've been so lackluster in my own duties, into being what I want to be. And I'm going to need your help with that if you're willing to help me. Then he reveals that he has Bug bound and gagged with duct tape in the trunk of his car. And after intimidating him, Buck lets Bug out of the trunk to apologize to her, in which Bug has the worst apology ever. I'm sorry, like doing one of those. And after Tia shows that she may be a little bit crazy herself, he shows a little bit of acknowledgement, but then he threatens to sue Buck after they start taking off and retracts his apology, but
I'm gonna
flees.
sue you for everything you got. I'm like, did you see his car? He has nothing.
Everything he's got is in that car, just so you know. So when he retracts his
And
apology,
it barely runs.
he like flees in fear after Buck basically drops a golf ball and hits him with a 5 wood pretty accurately, and then drops another one because the guy keeps talking. And afterwards, they kind of laugh, and Tia helps Buck reconcile with Shanice, and it is a funny way that they kind of reconcile. She's basically talking up Buck as much as possible. Shanice kind of catches on that something may be a little bit off and decides to kick the door where Buck is in, where he's at, but he dodges the first one. But then he makes a mistake of going back for the second one, and this time it catches him cleanly, and he's basically knocked out. And he goes, "Honey, I do tell you that I love you, and it wasn't for new tires; it was for shocks. Remember?" um, Buck does agree to kind of to start his job at the garage, and he and Shanice get back together. Meanwhile, Sydney's father has recovered, and she and Bob return home from Indianapolis. Upon entering the house, this is a really, really great moment. Tia surprises her mother with a hug. And this was like after so much tension and fighting for her mother to kind of like come back home and finally get that like moment that you kind of been waiting for. Um, and of course, as they say goodbye to Buck and Shanice as they leave for Chicago, Buck and Tia exchange a loving and wave goodbye. And that final moment where Candy kind of does the wave, has the wave and says bye to Tia, that is where the movie actually ended. That felt for me the most John Candy move of anything in this entire movie. Like somebody that felt genuine. And that was something that a lot of people like to talk about with Candy. He was a comedic genius, and he was just getting his feet warm with the dramatic roles, because he was very, very good at the dramatic roles. It just hadn't reached to that point yet in his life because everybody saw him as a comedian. Of course, he passed away in 1994 after being casted into the Death Script, which that's a story for another day. Um, but yeah, no, and that's Uncle Buck. Really glad you joined me on this one.
I'm glad you asked me to. Like over the moon.
It really is great.
This one This one and Mrs. Doubtfire are tied for my number one favorite movies.
I would have considered Mrs. Doubtfire as well.
We'll save that one for another time.
Definitely. So let's get into some takeaways to wrap this thing up. Selena, who's getting your That Guy award?
Buck, duh.
Right.
Maybe the dog.
The dog is cute. I'll say that. Who's getting your That Chick award?
Ooh. I'm gonna go with Tia. I very angsty, mad at her parents because they moved, like uprooted them and left, and she already had like she had solidified like consistency there. And then at 15, I can't imagine easy to just up and move, not only to a new school, but to a new city, make new friends and meet new people and all those stuff. But at the end of the day, she grew up. She was definitely, excuse me, acting way older than a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But that's another reason I want to give her that chick award, is because she was living like ahead of her years, had so much maturity, but acted in a totally naive way because she's 15. And then that good head on her shoulders finally revealed itself.
Yeah. No, you kind of hit it there. Um, she the actress has always been like a very, very, very wide range actress. I kind of wish she gotten bigger because one day I want to cover Mr. Holland's Opus to kind of show how fantastic like Richard Dreyfuss can really be in a movie, because that movie hits so many emotional tolls, and it kind of epitomizes with her character there. That's kind of like in the movie itself, and in the movie itself, like he kind of falls for her, and there were talks of them possibly running away together, which I know sounds really, really bad, but it also felt like him and his wife kind of had like no connection whatsoever. through
Mhm.
a big part of the movie. So you could kind of see why this was a person that they felt like he could get the best out of with singing, and she was genuine in her feelings with him. But and the wife kind of figured it out, but and you could kind of tell like afterwards, like the wife kind of was like, wow, he really chose me over her. It's not to say they never did anything. There was no cheating moment or anything like that. No physical contact, should I say? But um, she plays so fantastic in a lot of her stuff. Back to you. That full award.
Bug.
Yeah.
He is the epitome of fools.
Yeah. Yeah. There's very few people that are worse than Bug. Um,
Very few.
he would definitely have a Me Too case right now. I'll just say that. Cut that out. Is there anything you would cut out in this movie? 99 minutes.
Mm, I don't know because I'm gonna go with no, and it's a biased no because I love this movie so much that I don't care if this scene has absolutely nothing to do with the movie. But um, maybe if one thing had to be cut out, the scene with Maisie talking to the teacher about what happened that weekend and her uncle microwaving the socks. But at the same time, it's so cute and so funny, and it kind of backs the assistant principal up on like like what is she thinking?
Right.
But I would maybe that scene
Okay.
if gun to my head how to cut a scene out.
Does it hold up? Obviously.
Yeah.
32
I
years.
mean, you aged me. I think it really does hold up. Maybe like I mean, I'm pretty sure they remade this not too long ago.
It was a TV
Uh,
series at one point.
yeah. So it's like if it's able to be rebooted as a TV series, I mean, a long time ago, but also very long after the movie came out, it definitely still holds up.
They
I
did
think it would be rooted it with like an ant.
they did a TV series in 1990, and then they decided to do it again with Mike Epps starring. Um,
That's the one
yeah, it was just okay. That's all I'm going to say is that it was really just okay. And
I never saw it.
finally, iconic scene.
Oh, I have two. So my favorite scene when he's meeting with the principal or the vice principal, obviously. But I also really love the birthday scene, like all of it when he's making the pancakes, say, you should see the toast. I couldn't even get it through the door. And beating up the clown.
All really, really, really solid scenes. All right, here we go. That guy award for me is going to go to Buck. Candy at this point in his career, because Candy I think got his start in Stripes. I don't know if that was his first ever movie, but it was one of his first well-known movies. No, it can't be because he was also in 1941, and that was well before this, well before Stripes. So, anyways, this is probably one of Canny's most memorable roles. He obviously he's had roles since then where he's kind of played kind of a minor character and has kind of led his way, but this really felt like the first time that Candy took that lead role and just kind of ran with it as far as he possibly could with it, because everything else he's kind of playing off of people. This was Candy's role that he literally carried, and he doesn't do that too often. Like I know he did it even in like even in Spaceballs, he wasn't the main guy. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he was kind of playing off. He was playing off Steve Martin more than anything. Great Outdoors was off of Aykroyd. Um, I guess Cool Runnings, but even then, he wasn't like funny in that. He was more. He was that was a more serious role for him as a lighthearted Disney.
It, yeah. Summer Rental, he was the main guy.
Yeah, Summer Rental. There you go.
Earlier, I said Caddyshack, and I'm like, wait, that's Rodney Dangerfield. Like
Yeah,
now that I'm replaying that in my head, so oops.
you're thinking of Dangerfield. He was also in Brewster's Millions, one underrated movie. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so this was really like Candy's role to kind of carry, and it definitely was one of those roles that by the end of it, afterwards you're kind of sitting there afterwards like, wow, this was really cute and really funny, and you wanted to see what he did afterwards. And I won't say that he did a whole lot more. Um, he because it was like after he got that starring role, he was like, well, now I'm going to go ahead and start doing serious roles. Like he had a major role in JFK. He had a pretty he had a major role in Only, and he was a lead in Only the Lonely. You know,
Mhm.
he later would show up in Rookie of the Year. Yay, I love that movie. And of course, he had more of a serious role in Cool Runnings, but his career unfortunately ended 1995 with Canadian Bacon. And that was his last film that he ever did. But yeah, so this is definitely Candy's role. Buck is everything that you want in an uncle, and I try to emulate as much of that as possible as an uncle myself.
My
Uh,
hero. I want to be you when I grow up.
yeah. That chick award, I'm gonna follow you. I'm gonna give it to Tia. Um, I kind of wanted to give it to Maisie because she is adorable in this movie. Everything about her in this movie is just really adorable. But Tia plays the angsty teenager to a T. And I am going to kind of echo some of the things that you said, moving away, especially during her teenage years, when you probably had a best friend, in the city that you were from, and you had your family over there, and in a way you kind of feel all alone. You don't get along with your parents. Yeah, those are all played great, great with her. um
Mhm.
she grew up a lot in this movie very fast. She already felt very old, but you could tell that she just felt like she was smarter than everybody around, and that really wasn't the case. Like she just didn't see what was basically out there. When she finally like turns that corner and really kind of showcases how good of a person she can kind of be to kind of help out Buck, you really grow to, even though it's super late in the movie, you really say, you know what, I'm glad you experienced real character growth in this, instead of constantly fighting back and forth with people.
Mhm.
That full award, Bug, yes, and also Pal, combined.
The Power movie.
Yeah, but Pal is Bug. Pal is in like 20 years or 15 years or whatever. He's going to just be hanging out around bowling alleys, trying to pick up chicks, you know, and not really having much in his life outside of a brand new Bronco red. You know, Bug is everything wrong with men. That's all I'm going to say. There is nothing redeemable about Bug, and they show that at the end of this film, and they have no problem showing that there's nothing redeemable about Bug. I'm really happy about that. Let's see, cut that out. The only scene I would possibly consider cutting out is maybe the clown scene, because it's a funny scene. It is a funny scene. In terms of adding anything to the story, you already kind of felt that John Candy was kind of a badass in this movie. This just kind of showcases it a little bit more. Um, but in all honesty, like if you had decided to cut out the clown scene, I think the movie does just fine, especially if it would have ended right at the reveal of the breakfast. That's just my opinion.
But see, I think that scene is a little bit important because while Buck is a guy that wouldn't mind being at an all night bachelorette party telling the dildo jokes or whatever, um, he knows how to turn that part off and turn on the responsible adult part. Maybe you shouldn't be around kids, or he drinks but not around the children ever. Like
That
even when they were bowling, I don't think he might have had a beer in his hand, but it was never like excessive drinking or anything like that, and he really didn't want that around his nephew or his friends.
he did drink at the bowling alley, right at the end, because
Yeah.
he literally asked Tia, cigar, and he goes and he takes like a swig of his beer, which isn't the worst thing. I think I think the only reason why I would really consider cutting out the clown scene is because I think you kind of established already how how much of a guy that how much of a party guy that Buck really is. When when his buddy literally comes up to him and literally says, "Hey, shithead," that's what he literally calls him. So it's literally like you could tell these guys probably go way back, probably get super blitzed, no problem. And even like even Raj was like, he was like kind of really cool with him taking on this extra little
Mhm.
responsibility. So that's the only reason why. Otherwise, I love the scene. Like I have no issues with the scene whatsoever. Um, does it hold up?
The
Absolutely.
clown scene.
Go ahead.
Oh, just the clown scene also goes to show really how disconnected the mom is from the children.
Yeah.
How are you not gonna like? How do you not know this clown is one of the worst? It should not be around children. I know they didn't have Yelp or anything like that back in the day, but the neighbors well enough. Like, hey, what kind of who should I order for the party? Nope. She probably just saw the very first clown in the phone book and called it.
This is true, and you bring up a really, really solid point. Um, I the one thing that we don't know is how long they've been in town. We don't know how long they've been in Indianapolis, or in Chicago in this case. It could have been a few months. It really feels like a few months.
Mhm.
I'll put it this way: it doesn't feel longer than a year. I think max it feels is maybe 6 months. So shame on her for being disconnected. But to be honest, she's disconnected from her entire family anyway. Like she's not, either she is also suffering from something, be it loneliness away from her family because this was Bob's promotion that was taken, or something else that she hasn't found a way to basically like connect with Chicago yet. Not saying that it's not going to happen. Just she has her lifestyle. She's like, think of it this way: like Indiana in general is very like conservative in its own mind. Um, Chicago is very very open minded. So when she's describing stuff like when she's with that woman that sells tires, so it's kind of like it's it's saying either A, she disapproves of a woman owning a tire shop, or a woman who is a businesswoman, which in Chicago there's a lot of female owned businesses out there. It's actually one of the most impressive things about Chicago. That being said, like that's where I kind of think her thinking is that she just hasn't found a way to like connect with anything whatsoever. So her fuck up with the clown, which is her fuck up, absolutely her fuck up, just kind of, you know what, she may be that fool instead. The mom needed to be a little bit more. She can't just be like, things are going to change after hugging her daughter. Like, her daughter needed guidance, and you're so ready to prepare Chinese food at a very expensive dinner table Stop doing that. like, what are you doing? Everybody knows you eat Chinese out of the carton. Simple as that. Stop doing that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Anyways, does this movie hold up? Yes, it does. 32 years running. I can still watch this. I can watch this right now and laugh my ass off. It's a fucking fantastic movie. Please, please, please go watch it. And finally, iconic scene. If I have to choose one, I am going to choose. I gotta choose a birthday party because everything about the birthday party is what makes a good parent in general. Not just uncle, not just dad, not just a person watching the kids. This is he took his time to figure this out. He knew how to do this beforehand, which is even more impressive, or he really went out of his way and said, I want to see how ridiculous this is going to be because I want to make sure that my nephew has a story. And that is much more important than anything else. I want my family to have a story at the end of this, that when they think of their Uncle Buck, that they're going to think of those fucking pancakes, and how great it was and how huge they were. There was so much syrup everywhere. He is not even our uncle, and we refer to him to those pancakes. We think of the Uncle Buck's pancakes, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like that. I wish I wish people would take more of that mentality to make something stupid and ridiculous, like that, just to have the story, because that's really what's more important. It's more important to build the memory more than anything else. If they never see Uncle Buck ever again for whatever reason, maybe the mom is still a bitch, whatever, right? Maybe they just never found a way to invite Uncle Buck back into here. Maybe he dies. I don't know. They would always remember him for those pancakes, and that is a much more important lesson than anything else that this movie can teach us outside of please be a good man. Be a good man.
Mm-hmm.
Stop harassing girls. Stop being a predator. That's another
Yeah.
big. And teenage girls, please learn to communicate properly. please, please learn to communicate properly, especially when somebody's going well out of their way to be there for you. Anyways, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into some takeaways. Wrap this thing up. This is more than 45 minutes at this point. During Miles' interrogation of Uncle Buck, John Candy wrote out the script's dialogue and wore it atop his head so Macaulay Culkin can read the lines more quickly and keep the pace of the scene very fast. Note, this would be the take of the scene when the camera was set for close-ups of Miles. One night during filming, John Candy went to a bar with music supervisor Tarkin Gotch and spent most of the night there meeting people. The next day, John Hughes was pissed off because he heard from a caller in a radio talk show describing his evening with Candy. He was so upset with Candy, and despite Candy's assertion that Buck was supposed to appear disabled, Hughes canceled his scenes for the day and told him to get his shit together and get some sleep.
Oh my Lanta.
Let's see. Winona Ryder was the first choice to actually play Tia after John Hughes had seen her in Beetlejuice. But Ryder turned it down and she was busy working on Heathers, which okay, that's a pretty good second pick.
I know. I think it worked out the way that it did.
I think so too. Let's see. Let's see. When Buck goes to the party to find Tia, he hears rap music playing, Bust a Move by Young MC, and jokingly says, "Who's that? The Grassroots?" The Grassroots were a popular band in the late 1960s that had a string of hits including Let's Live for Today, Midnight Confessions, and Temptation Not Eyes, amongst others. Let's see. Obviously, Macaulay Culkin got the role for Kevin McAllister from this movie, as Christopher Columbus got a recommendation from John Hughes. Whoa. I don't know if I like that idea. I got to think about that. Joe Pesci was considered for the role of Uncle Buck, but turned it down to do Lethal Weapon 2. I got to think about that for a second
I
because
don't like it. I don't like it.
I love, I don't think he could replace John Candy, but I kind of want to see the idea of Pesci like playing the mobster role, uncle, and like, at one point he just so happened to take out Bug's kneecaps, for whatever reason, because that's what,
Actually, go at
when you think
um
it that way, it sounds much more enticing. And let's see, one more. No. No, they don't understand. No, that's going to be it. That is how we are going to end the show with the idea of Joe Pesci as Uncle Buck. It's Uncle
hey,
Paulie.
but they got
Uncle Paulie said. Selina, I want to thank you once again for joining me on here. This will be the show that comes out while I'm in Boston. So if you're interested in checking out the show, make sure you do so. I will practically not be sharing anything in the show because, well, I'll be in fucking Boston. So there you go. Selena, let the people know where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter at MexEgyptian.
Perfect. And you can also find her show, Cinema Rehab, through the Beat Network YouTube page. All you got to do is look up Cinema Rehab via Beat Network, and you'll be able to find it. As always, you can find everything Beat Network on beatnetworkonline.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at David Danger Neff. There are 3 different personalities that run that, so I just need to let you know that now. So you never know what personality you're going to get, depending on who you're actually speaking to at that time. Let's see what else. You can follow the show anywhere they basically listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. Whether you listen on Spotify, Apple Music, or Pandora, or wherever, you can find our show. Just make sure you type in the back to the classics, and I guarantee you'll be able to find us. We're coming up on 200 episodes. Holy shit, we're coming up on 200 episodes. So we are. I know, and we are going to try to have to figure out something that is going to be so excellent, where everybody's inviting, kind of, says whatever about our show. They could criticize it or welcome it, whatever you want to do. Let's see, set it. Oh, also, the Back to the Classics Facebook group is up and popping. There's a lot of fun conversations going on through there. Sorry I haven't been so much into that currently. I'm just trying not to burn myself out from constantly thinking about numbers. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Once again, I want to thank my wonderful partner in crime here, Selena, dropping in here, doing an awesome job. Thank you so much for joining me for Uncle Buck.
For having me.
And if you haven't seen Uncle Buck, make sure you go ahead and check it out. I think it's on Cinemax right now. So go ahead and check it out. And that's all I got. We will be back next week. Jay will be back finally on the show permanently, and we're gonna go and move forward and close out this year as strong as possible. So, with that being said, I'm your guy Danger Neff. With me, as always,
Selena.
and we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.